Hey there, and welcome to this lesson on atmosphere in motion design. My name is Cameron, and you are watching Motion Science. And we're going to start off with this lesson on atmosphere by looking at some form. That's what we're going to start with. We're here inside of Cinema 4D, and I'm not going to go over everything that I did to create the scene, but it's a very, very simple scene. What I brought in is I imported in a bridge, which we can see right here. It's just a free model I found off the internet. It was a Creative Commons file. Very simple model. Just found it for free somewhere, downloaded it. And I also created a very simple metal texture that I'm not going to go into, but you're welcome to open up this texture and just kind of look at it. It's a very, very simple metal texture with a little bit of a bump map on it. And that is basically it. There's a light, which is in our scene, which is just hovering above our bridge. Right here, it's a very simple light, and there's a camera, and there's a null object. And the null object's here so that if I want to place anything inside of my scene within After Effects, I kind of know where the null is sitting inside my scene, so it's not totally necessary. But if I go into my camera view here, and I select my camera, you're gonna see there's a keyframe here at the beginning, and there's a keyframe here at the end, and it's just a very simple move. So if I click play, we're just pushing upwards. We're trucking upwards, I believe is the correct term. I could be wrong. I believe it's called a truck. And we're just moving upwards. And that's it. It's 240 frames long. It's 24 frames per second, which means that this animation is 10 seconds long. And if I click render real quick here, you're going to see that this texture, it's just kind of like a rusty metal texture, just to give it some definition. Like I said, this is not the best texture to use for this. I'm by no means a texture expert. I just literally brought in a bridge model, grabbed a metal texture, dropped it on it, added a light, and set it up to render. I rendered this out as a PNG sequence. Also worth noting, this is a 2048 by 1080 comp. It's not 1920 by 1080. I did that just because I wanted to have a little bit wider frame, a little bit more cinematic frame. But you could do this at any size. It's 240 frames long. Like I said, the output, I rendered this as a PNG sequence. 16 bits per channel. It's an alpha channel included. And I saved it out. If you're using Cinema 4D Lite, I'll show you how you can use this in Cinema 4D Lite, because you're not able to render out of Cinema 4D. You actually have to render the scene in After Effects. So I'll show you that in just a second. I also have ambient occlusion turned on, which is under effects here. And that just creates a little bit of shadow, extra shadow at the points where the different polygons connect. So it just creates a little bit more realistic shadow. That's all. So the scene is saved. I rendered it out ahead of time because it did take a little bit of time to render this guy out. So that being said, I'm going to jump over here into After Effects, and I've got my Cinema 4D file imported. I also have my render sequence imported. Just to show you, if you're using Cinema 4D Lite, all you have to do is import the Cinema 4D file and drag it down onto your timeline, and you will be able to see the scene. And if you want to see it in its final glory, you're going to change it to current. And that is going to render it out at full res so that you can work with your file. You can do everything else I'm doing here in this project. You're just not going to be using a PNG sequence. You're going to use the Cinema 4D file. So that is all you have to do. So I'm going to work with the PNG sequence just because it's a quicker process, and this has already been rendered, right? So I already rendered this out. Whenever you bring a PNG sequence into After Effects, for whatever reason, it defaults to 30 frames per second, which you can see up here. So I need to right click, interpret that footage, main, and we're going to say 24 frames per second, click OK. And now you can see it is 24 frames per second. It's reading it correctly. So I'm going to drag it down in my timeline here, and I'm going to hit Command K. And my timeline is called, or composition is called The Bridge. You can see it's 2048 by 1080. Let's make it 10 seconds. 10:01, extend out. And now we can see there is our 3D render as a PNG sequence. Like I said, it has an alpha channel, and you can see that here where it says plus straight. That means there's an alpha channel. So if I come down here and turn on transparency grid, there is our alpha channel. That is so that we can bring in some of our assets like the ground fog here and take it below the bridge, and you're going to see it behind the bridge. Or I can take it in front of the bridge and it's in front of the bridge. Okay. So let's start here. And before I get too far, I want to tell you that this element is from Action VFX. There's a link in the description for Action VFX. If you want to get more of their footage and see what they have, definitely click on the link. They are kind enough to let us use this footage for our example here to show how to build atmosphere. So thank you to Action VFX, and definitely check them out. So we're talking about atmosphere, and atmosphere to me a lot of times has to do with smoke and fog and things like that, which is what I have here, right? It's called Ground Fog 3. It's a 4K file, so it's huge, right? So if I wanted to scale this guy down, you can see that's the full shot, right? So awesome stuff. When we apply this over the top of like this bridge or behind this bridge, it immediately gives us some really interesting depth and some really interesting atmosphere, right? So let's take it back over the top. And a lot of times people will just set this to something like screen, and you can see, there it is. It's screened over the top of our footage. But the problem with this technique is that it actually makes the white values brighter in our footage, which we don't want. So I can take a screenshot here and we'll come back to this, okay? So how I want to treat this is I want to go back to normal, and I'm going to go up to Effect, Channel. I'm going to go down here to Shift Channels, and under Shift Channels, I'm going to say take alpha from the luminance, and that's looking at the black and white values here. So I'm going to take it from the luminance, and immediately you can see, okay, now all of a sudden there's alpha channel here in the fog, and it's not making this bridge brighter in the background. So what I could do now is I could go to Effect, and I could go to Generate Fill. And this is what's cool is we can colorize the fog. So if I wanted it to be, straight white, like it was, there it is, right? So this is a better way to approach compositing fog or smoke versus screen. And I'll show you, I'll switch to my snapshot. And you can see there, it's not a huge difference, but you can see, depending on your shot, it's going to be brighter in certain areas or not. So this is just a little bit more realistic way to approach using fog and smoke for atmosphere. So we're going to stick with this for now. And I forgot to mention that what we're building here is based on something I saw from the Alienist, which is right here. This is a really powerful title sequence. Absolutely love it. And I just love the overall vibe, the overall feel. Lots of atmosphere. And we've talked about this piece. But when we get to this bridge shot right here, this is what really inspired me to make something in this vein. I thought it'd be fun to kind of do something like this. So again, you can see like there's a lot there. Obviously it's green, right? A green color grade. There's some texture moving in the foreground. There's kind of like this stop motion feel to it. Everything's very flickery and kind of like a posterized time kind of look. So that's what we're kind of going for here on our bridge. We're making it our own, right? But it's highly inspired from the Alienist title sequence. So with that being said, I'm actually going to go in here and make this fog more in the green range. I don't want it to be overpowering, but maybe something like that. We'll see. We can always come back to it. The next thing we're going to do is if you play this back, and I'll switch to half res here, but if you play this back, you can see that the bridge has a movement to it. But like, look at the top here of the fog. It just stays in the same place. It's not reacting to the camera, and it looks very fake. I'll play this back in real time. So, there are times that you could get away with kind of faking the move with how, like, if we were to just like put a position keyframe on the fog, that could work and kind of make, fake it. But a better way to approach this is to actually bring in the Cinema 4D file, just like this. And we are going to extract the scene data from the Cinema 4D file. So we're gonna hit extract. And you're gonna see down here, it brings in a light, which we don't need, and a camera, okay? So let's go ahead and delete our Cinema 4D file. We don't need it anymore. So now we have a camera in our scene. And let's take this ground fog, let's make it 3D, and you can see it disappears. And that's because of a thing inside of Cinema 4D where it puts, After Effects is kind of weird in the fact that it puts the center point in 3D space, whatever. It's like you take the, like the width is 2048, you divide that by 2, which is 1024. And you take the height, which is 1080, and you divide that by 2, and that's 540. That's how After Effects figures out what the 0 point is of 3D space, whereas Cinema 4D looks at it as 0, 0, and 0, okay? So now you can see our fog is back into our scene at 0. It's quite large, so let's shrink it down, way down. And you can also see that the rotation is off, right? And if we go to a 2 view here, there's our center point of our fog, and there's our camera at an angle shooting this way. So I'm going to just rotate this, hit R for rotation. I'm going to rotate it on the Y, and I'm just going to rotate it something like that. If I look at the R rotation here, actually I can see that the Y rotation is negative 43.7, and we're at negative 43. So let's actually go 0.7, and we should be lined up pretty close to how it should look correct. I think we may have to adjust it again, but let's go back to P for position, and let's take our X value and let's kind of move it. Let's move the Y down, and you can see how fast this moves because it's so close to the camera. Going back to the 2 views here, you can see how close this is to the camera, and that's, that equates to very fast movements on the screen, right? So let's move it actually closer to the camera. I'm going to do this because I want to create more parallax in our scene. Actually, maybe that's too much. It doesn't have to be very much. Maybe something like that. Go back to 1 view. And looking at the rotation, I'm actually just going to go and rotate this even more. So it kind of looks, I'm looking at the Z value here, and I'm looking at the line, the edge of the bridge here, and I want these to be a little closer. So maybe right there. Now, if I play it back now, you can see instantly, look how that fog is moving down with that bridge, right? Now it's more glued to the scene. It's part of that scene. It looks more realistic. This is actually more like of a lesson on compositing than it is atmosphere. But the point of this is that this fog is what's creating this interesting, look to this piece. Without it, we can add some textures, and we're going to do that. But, it's pretty boring, right? And then we just add some atmosphere, and it completely changes the look. So now I'm going to Command D to duplicate. I'm going to take this layer behind the bridge, and I'm going to push it back so that's a little bit farther back in space. We're going to create more parallax this way. And you can see that it's not quite, the top is okay because the fog's not extending off the edge of the frame, but you do need to watch out if you're using some different footage and pieces of elements of the fog are going off the screen, off the layer, you're going to get some clipping up here. So you need to be careful about that. So that's looking okay. One thing we're going to do as well is we're going to offset the time of this fog. So it looks like they're kind of two different fog layers. Even though we're using the same fog, we're just offsetting the background fog so that it starts at a different place and it ends at a different place. Let's try and increase the size of the background fog here. I really want to fill the frame with it. And the same with the foreground fog. You have to be really careful with how much you add to this. But something like that. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the fill and turn off the original because I like that green. But let's go back to white for now. And same for the background. Just duplicate it and let's go back to white as well. And turn off that green. Yeah, that's looking better. Definitely looking better. I'm going to go back to the foreground here and go to 2 views again. Kind of see where, okay. There we go. So let's bring in some texture. Texture can also add to atmosphere. So let's drop this guy in, make him 3D, go to position and set it to 0, tab 0, tab 0. And we're going to set the rotation as well on this guy. We're going to see what we're at negative. Let's make it even. Let's do negative 80 and rotation negative 80. And then the rotation of this guy will be negative 80. And let's make sure that we've got, let's bring this guy. I did the wrong rotation there. I was wondering what was going on. Y is negative 80. There we go. We're going to bring this guy way up close to the camera. So there's our fog layer right there. Okay. Here's our new layer here. So this is the foreground fog. This is the background fog. And pretend that the bridge is sitting right here. So we've got our other fog or our texture layer here. Let's scale it down. Way down. And let's set this guy to screen. And let's pull this over so you can see a little bit better here what's going on. And I'm going to move. I don't like this white edge here. Something like that. So you can see, I mean, that's a lot, right? It's like, right, it's in your face. If I preview this, you can see it's almost like there's this glass texture over a really foggy glass, right? Over the top, which is making it more interesting. So this is kind of a combination of texture and atmosphere at the same time. But you can use texture to create atmosphere, 100%. So let's go in here to color correction levels. And I want to bring some of this texture out. I want to get rid of some of it. So I'm going to play around with these values here. That's a little bit too much because I do like, I mean, it is really interesting. Go P for position and let's, maybe something like that. Maybe screen's too much. Maybe lighten. That might be closer to it. Yeah. Now, when we get way up here, I don't like that we can't see the fog. So let's go to that foreground fog and let's bring it up. Actually, that's the background fog. But let's bring up some of that background fog as well. Maybe there. And foreground fog. Zoom out here. Yep. And now let's back it up and make sure. Now here's the problem is that now the bottom of the fog is not down low enough. So we need to increase the scale. So let's go to maybe 5. Go to the top. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's extend this out. And I think the background is okay for now. I think that looks okay. I've got another texture I'm going to bring in. And you know what? Before we do that, let's actually take this foreground texture. Let's actually blur it. Blur and sharpen. Let's do fast box blur. And repeat edge pixels just because. I always do that to be safe. So 5 is too much. 3 is still too much. Maybe it's a 1. Maybe it's going to go lower. 0.5. Boy, it just needs just a touch. Boy, maybe 0.1. Let's go 0.1. Very little amount. Back to the project, fractured glass. Let's bring this in. Before we do that, let's actually duplicate our layer here. And now let's hold down Alt or Option and let's drag in our texture, drop it over the top, and hit P for position and drop down this guy. And let's turn off the effects. There we go. So this has kind of got this interesting, like, scratchy glass feel to it. And I'm going to blur it just a little bit. I don't need levels on this one. But you can see the top of it, we're losing it there. We got plenty on the bottom, so let's actually move it up. So the edge of it's just at the bottom of the frame here. And the top, we're still losing the top, so we need to scale it up. Let's do a 3. And now we're good. Plenty of room up here on the top. And we got some room down here. Perfect. Let's add a new adjustment layer. And this will be our Stylize CC Vignette. And we're going to really crank up the vignette amount here. And I don't have to keep this centered. So let's actually drag it over to the side here, maybe up in this area. And that's going to be our focus, is up in here. And the reason that's going to be our focus is because we're going to add some typography up there. So let's do that. So we're going to go up to the type tool here and we're going to type in the bridge. I can spell it right. We're going to select all of it and we are going to go into, I think, Vermin Vi. No, that's not it. The right is EXOC. I don't know how you pronounce that, but there you go. So that, yeah, that looks okay. And we're going to make sure we've got it selected over here. Hit V for our tool. And let's make it 3D. And bring it below our adjustment layer, which this is our vignette. And P for position, and we'll make it 0, 0, 0. And it's massively huge. That's okay. Let's go back to R rotation. So it's -80. Okay. R for rotation, -80 on the Y. And then we're going to scale this guy down to like 3. And we're going to take the Z and push him back here. Maybe something like that. And then we're actually going to push the type back behind the bridge as well. So it's something like this. And I'm going to look at the ground fog in the background layer. And you can see it's at 27. Let's actually make it 50. It's a little bit farther back. And then we'll make this one 40. So it's kind of in between the bridge and the fog. So now if we play back, yeah, you see a little bit of parallax there. Let me kind of push. Kind of want it to sit just a hair, a little bit behind the bridge here. And I don't like the rotation. I don't know why I did that. So we'll zero it back out. And S for scale again. And let's make it a little bit bigger. That may be too big. Yeah, too big. 4. Let's actually bring it up. Go back to -80 again. We'll leave it like that. Maybe we'll have it so it just starts off frame there, out of frame. So just up here, and then it rests right there. So that's nice. I like that. And I'm gonna go back to 0 again. I keep changing my mind here. I kind of like it angled like that, a little bit better. Something I'm not liking is this foreground fog. It's just not quite moody enough for me. It's not working quite right. And maybe it has to do with the shift channel effect. Let me go back here to screen. You know, I'm going to bite my tongue here, and I'm going to go back to using screen on this one because it creates just a little bit more atmosphere there in the foreground, and I like that. So I know I told you the other way to go about doing it, but I'm going to go with this approach this time. Yep, I like that. Let's also add a new adjustment layer here. So I'm going to colorize this, and we're going to call this color grade. Now I am going to use a third-party effect here to get the look I'm going for. There's different ways you could do this. You could use color correction, lumetry. That would, you know, go in and change the colors to get more of that green tint we were going for. But I'm going to use Magic Bullet Looks. This is an old favorite plugin of mine that comes with Magic Bullet. It's a plugin set I've had forever. And for any of you who know me, who have heard me speak, you'll hear me talk about using Sapphire and Red Giant. Those are my two sets of plugins that I think every motion designer should have. Red Giant and Boris FX Sapphire. So keep that in mind. So I'm on Analog Tribe here, and I found some really interesting looks in this pack. You can go a lot of different ways. That's really nice. Flip Flops is very moody. Record label's really nice. Ooh, I really like that a lot. That's really nice too. I like how it kind of blows out the center. Creates a lot more interest in the center. Ooh, that's nice for a nice black and white look. Maybe we'll go with that. I really like that. Sanborn, Restoration. That's real moody. Ice Pick. Wow, there's just some really pretty ones in here. You can see why I like to come to this for certain reasons, for certain projects. Let's go, boy. Let's go with Flip Flops. Let's do that one. We're just gonna hit that preset, click OK, and it's already starting to look pretty nice. So let's go ahead and preview this. Okay, so there we go. So the opening of this looks really nice. These scratches are way too much. The background atmosphere is really nice. I love the atmosphere here in the foreground at the beginning. At the end, I'm losing some of it, right? I want to see more of it up in here, just to give it more mood, to make it moodier. So let's start here with the, is it the fractured glass? Yeah, that's the one. And I'm kind of losing, I've totally lost this guy. Why is that? Because he's right there. Let's go back. So there, it was there. Maybe we'll go back to screen. Yeah, so we'll bring it back in through screen. Lighten was just too light. And then we're gonna go back to the fractured glass here, and we're gonna try and reposition it. There was a section of it that I really liked a lot. Maybe. So that brings in some more of it. So like, I like it just up here, kind of in the corners. Again, that's nice, but again, I think it's too much. And I'm paying close attention to this edge here to make sure that there's no scratches being cut off. And there it is, they're being cut off right there. So let's increase the size to 4. And see how that looks. So there's a ton of atmosphere there, which is okay, because then we can spend a little bit more focus up here on the bridge. And you know I want to add glow to this. You know I do. We'll get there. The bridge, little too bright. Let's go to Effect, Color Correction, and we'll go to Curves. And we're just going to drop this down in here. So that's with and that's without. just darkening up a bit. Let's look here. Let's add another point. Maybe that. We're also going to go to this texture, and we are going to apply a tint to this texture. It's way too white. So let's just find kind of like a hot spot, like a brown here. And then what we can do is we can brighten it up. All right, so we'll bring up the brightness here. Something like that. We're going to copy this tint and we're going to paste it on the fractured glass as well. So they're not quite so hot. It looks a little bit more like it's part of the same piece. I like that. Let's take the ground fog. Let's duplicate it. Ooh, boy, did that create a lot of mood there. But it's too much. So let's go to T for opacity. And let's bring down, because we just want it to be a little bit. So maybe 55%. Off, on, off, on. Maybe still too much. Let's go down to 35, 34. Off, on. I think I can work with that for now. I bring it up or I bring it down. Maybe I bring it down. Yeah, I like that. Let's also go to layer, new adjustment layer, and we'll call this posterize. Posterize. Take this to the very top, and we're going to apply effect time, posterize time. And I found in my test, I really liked 14 for the time. So this is going to give it more of a steppy, kind of stop motion-y feel to it. And we're still at half res, but you can see there what a change it makes to it, right? Let's also, I got to add it. Let's also add another adjustment layer. And we'll just call this effects. And I'm just going to apply my two typical effects here, which are under sapphire lighting. Actually, let's try plug in everything. If you don't have sapphire, you can use a deep glow, and that is not going to work. No. So how about if we try stylize glow? And let's see here. Let's make the radius a lot bigger. And let's make the intensity a lot smaller. And let's see here. It's just a little bit. And it doesn't look too bad. But I'm going to go ahead and put on my favorite, which is Sapphire Lighting S Glow. Like I said, if you want to be a pro, this is where I would go. Maybe something in there. And then I'm also going to go to the bridge, apply effect, blur and sharpen. It's way too crisp, right? It just doesn't, it's nice in the shot, but it's way too crisp. So let's add a Gaussian blur of 3. That helps. So that's with and without, maybe even more. Let's double it. 6. Way too much. 4. Let's go back to 3. Let's also apply a blur to the bridge. Let's make it a 3 as well. And too much. 2. So it's off. Boy, that's just a little bit. Let's try 4. Let's go to 3. And for the bridge, we're also going to use that brown color. So if we go to our textures and copy that tint, and we go to the bridge, we can just paste it without changing the colors over here. We can just paste, so it looks a little nicer. Not straight up white. And we're also going to apply under effects, we're going to apply some another favorite, which is chromatic aberration, which is warp chroma. Very, very subtle amount. I always just load this preset for whatever reason, and always just click the very first one here, load, and we're going to crank down the amount. It's still too much, so like 0.98. I mean, you can see what a difference that makes, right? So without and with, it just makes it look that much more realistic. Maybe 0.985. Yeah, we'll go with that for now. And then we're also going to use a magic bullet. No, let's see here. What is it? Universe Stylize Misfire. And we're not going to use all of this stuff that's in here. So we're going to use softness, yes. No saturation. I liked the color it was at. Maybe fading. Fading's not... I actually like it without fading. We're not going to apply dust. Well, maybe... yeah, we'll apply a little bit of dust. We're going to open it up, and let's just turn it down, though. Like 3 and 4. Let's do that. Very small amount. We may go back and take that off. Flicker, sure. We don't need the vignette. We already have our own vignette. We don't need scratches. And contrast. Let's see here. Boy, that's a lot of contrast, which I like it, but it's too much. So I don't know if we need to go down. Down. There's 9. It's just a little bit, maybe even less. Let's go 5. And let's save, and let's preview this. Okay, so here's our preview, and it's looking really good. There's just a couple more things we need to do here. For one, the vignette is too strong over here. It's just a little bit too strong. Like here, right when it starts, it's okay. But at the end here, it's too much. This is too much, this scratch here. I don't like that I can see this bottom foot peg here. So I think we're gonna move the vignette maybe up over here or something. I don't know, we'll play with it. We're gonna scoot this guy over, and we're gonna add some grain. And we have to also remember that we're at half res here. So that's something to keep, it's important to keep in mind. So let's move this guy. Oh yeah, that's too much. Maybe we do just need to kind of center it up here. So we're at 220. So let's reset this, and we'll go to 220 again. And we're going to look here and look here. I think I want to take it up. I want to make the vignette a little bit higher. So see how I'm kind of getting rid of this leg here. So that's the goal. And then this main scratch here, I want to scoot this over, which I believe is a fractured glass. Yeah. So we'll hit P for position, and we'll just scoot it over on the X. So let's see where we were. Okay. Let's go 72. Yeah, it just needs to be a little bit, because I still want to see it here on the edge. So that works. Let's also, we're going to save. We're going to try adding fading. The fading is actually pretty nice. And then I want to look at funk. I don't want funk on. Yeah, maybe I do want funk on here. But maybe we don't want dust. No, we'll leave dust. And we're going to apply effect, noise and grain, add grain. And we are going to go to final output. And we're going to select not that one. Maybe this one. So that's with, out. So very subtle. Maybe take the vignette all the way to the top or not. You can see how much it changes the look just by reordering the effects. And I'm feeling pretty solid about this. I like it. So let's go to full res. Let's save and let's preview. So there we go. And you can see that the splotchiness, I'm assuming it's the splotchiness here. It's over the top. So the apply funk, that's what it is. I think that that is not what we want to see. And that's because we have so much texture here in the foreground with all these specks here. And I almost feel like actually it's too much at the top of the piece, but maybe it's not at the end for sure. So maybe what we do is make sure we have the right one. I believe it's this one. Yeah. We could T for transparency, maybe drop the transparency a little bit. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 60. That's a little bit too much, so maybe 70. Let's see how that looks. And there we go. There is our piece that we're calling the bridge. And it looks really nice. Really awesome atmosphere, right? Some added effects like flicker and things like that over the top. Maybe the flicker is a little intense. I would probably drop that back just a hair. But you can see, and I'm probably going to do that before I package this project up. You can see going from like what this looks like to just back to our original 3D render right here. Night and day difference, right? Actually, even take off the effects here, take those off. That was our original, and that's our finished product with atmosphere. Thanks for watching as always. My name is Cameron, and this is Motion Science.